We are back. Survivors, allies, and all of you that are ready to grow, even when it's uncomfortable. Today, we are talking about power, not dominance, not control over others, not even ego, guys. I'm talking about the kind of power that trauma tries to steal. Your agency, your voice, your sense of choice. Ooh, that rhymed. When someone violates you, physically, emotionally, psychologically, the deepest wound isn't always the actual event itself. It can be the loss of control. The moment your body, your boundaries, and your voice didn't feel like yours anymore. And here's what I need you to hear from the beginning. Power, even when it's lost, can be rebuilt. Not overnight, not perfectly, but intentionally. And today, we're going to discuss some ways of how we can begin to reclaim that power back. This is Walk With Me. First, we're going to start with what does trauma steal? Because trauma doesn't just hurt you, it disrupts your sense of agency. Okay? Researchers in trauma psychology consistently show that one of the strongest predictors of long-term distress after trauma isn't just severity. It's the perceived loss of control. When you feel powerless, your nervous system stays on alert. What does that mean? Well, you often question yourself, you second guess all your decisions, you hesitate or you shrink down. But that doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that your brain is trying to prevent future harm. But here's the truth. Survival mode isn't protective. It is not permanent. You are not meant to live there forever. Power is not aggression. It's agency. Let's redefine what power really is. Power isn't yelling louder than the person next to you. It's not dominating the conversation. All right. Power is not never, ever being hurt again. Power, or real power, is choice. Choice over your reactions, the boundaries that you've set, your pace in everything that you do, and your healing. The healing that starts small. And all of this starts small, very small. And this is where people tend to miss it. They think getting your power back means some huge, dramatic transformation. No, no. It means daily, intentional decisions that say, I have influence here. I have choice here. So how do you start to reclaim that power, we ask? Let's get practical for a minute here, guys, because getting your power back sounds super inspiring. Maybe when you first heard me talk on this, at the very beginning, you were like, yes, this is it. This is the way I get my power back. I'm going to listen here, and I'm going to receive this incredible inspiration, this motivation. But if we don't translate it into real behaviors, it becomes just that, some motivational phrase that lasts, as we all know, maybe an hour or two. Just small decisions, guys. And you're going to hear me say things like, repeat it consistently. That is where change comes from. So here's what this actually looks like. You begin to regulate before you react. Power, believe it or not, begins in the pause, because trauma wires the nervous system to react extremely quickly, because reacting fast used to keep you safe. So when something triggers you, your body might want to fire off a message, a text, a reply. You want to defend yourself immediately. Or sometimes you just want to shut down, right? But the escalation part is more common, okay? You either escalate it or you shut it down. You completely withdraw. That's your survival system talking. But when you pause before reacting, something amazingly powerful happens, guys. That pause activates your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making, reasoning, and emotional regulation. In other words, you move from survival mode to choice mode. That's agency. Okay? Let me be clear about something, guys. Pausing is not weakness. Pausing is quite the opposite. Discipline, right? That's what we're looking to get. That's the agency we're trying to regain. Let me give you an example. Someone sends you a text or an email or something that immediately spikes your emotions. Boom. It happens to all of us. It still happens to me all the time. But what my old pattern was, what your old pattern may have been, is respond instantly. Bah, 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 bah. Say something that later you read back and you go, that was dumb. That was dumb. That's called regret. And on top of that, you end up escalating the situation. So that may not be the only message that you send. It's a whole slew of them, a whole slew of replies. What's the new pattern? You get that message and immediately you just put the phone down. You breathe. You take a fucking walk, right? You come back 20 minutes. You come back 20 minutes later and ask yourself, do I still want to respond that same way? Right? You've had time to think about it. You've had time to pause and really understand what that message, why it set you off. It begins to work your whole nervous system. That space, that pause, that moment where you choose instead of react. And let me tell you something. Waiting 20 minutes before sending a text when you're triggered, that might be the most advanced emotional skill any of us could ever learn. And 20 minutes is nominal, guys. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. It depends on where you're at with yourself, okay? But in that moment of pause, your brain is saying, send the message, send it right now, send it, right? And the mature version of you has to go, no, absolutely not. Phone down, because I'm not going to ruin my emotional progress at 11:42 tonight, right? That's that's power returning. All right? Another way, make one unapologetic decision a day. Power grows through self-trust. You start believing yourself that this is the proper way to regulate everything inside of you. Self trust grows through decisions, not reckless decisions, okay? Not aggressive decisions, intentional ones. A lot of survivors lose the habit of trusting their own voice, our own voice. You start asking, is this okay? Am I allowed to feel this way? Will people around me be upset if I do this? So reclaiming power means practicing small acts of self honoring. This is for you. One decision at a time. It's for you. Say no when you mean no. For you. You leave early if your body says you're done. And you do that for you. Y'all, sometimes reclaiming power is not some dramatic movie moment. We've seen that movie where they're at a party and the person is like, I'm fed up. And he or she declares it to the rest of the party. I am leaving now. That's not what this shit is. That's not what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's just leaving a gathering early because your social battery is done. It's zero. Realizing you're a fucking adult now and nobody can actually stop you. That realization alone, honestly, top 5 moment in personal growth. Top 5. Another one is taking a day off without explaining it to everyone. Choose rest. Choose boundaries. Choose yourself. And every time you do that, every single time you decide this, gets you one step closer to regaining that power. Your nervous system starts to learn something extremely new to you. I am allowed to exist without permission. And that builds identity. Repeating these acts over and over again builds your identity stronger than it ever was before. You stop seeing yourself as someone who endures life and start seeing yourself as someone who participates in it. Okay, another one. Stop rehearsing helplessness. This one is firm. This one you have to do because this is where a lot of people unknowingly give their power away. And now you're going to know that that's exactly what you're doing. We're going to define it. Your brain believes what it hears more times than not. We all know this. We may not all believe it, or we may not all want to admit it, but we know that's true. If your internal dialogue sounds like this ruined me, or I'm never going to be the same because I'm broken, my life is permanently damaged. Your brain will keep building evidence for that story. Not because it's true, because it's not, but it's because it's repeated. You guys can remember if you've seen a couple of my episodes, how I've talked about how your brain is like an algorithm. Whatever you interact with the most, it gives you more of. It's basically the same social media does. Watch one conspiracy video, suddenly your entire feed thinks you're building a bunker in the woods. Your brain works the same way. It works the same way with your thoughts. Feed it helplessness all day, and guess what it's going to recommend next? Boom. Whatever you rehearse, it feeds you more of. This isn't just about healing, this is life. These are lessons that we learn in every aspect of our life. So reclaiming power means interrupting that rehearsal, that algorithm. Not pretending the trauma didn't happen. I am not telling you to do that. And I'm also not telling you to force fake positivity. When you're sitting there and you're crying, you're like, everything is fine, everything is fine. No, 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 no. One small decision, one small action at a time. You start asking yourself different questions. Instead of, why am I like this? Why don't you try, what did I handle better today? We have to celebrate the small wins. And that's the thoughts that we have to keep in our head because it starts building off those small celebrations. Instead of, I'm still struggling. That's a thought. That's a thought that's going to keep building. You say, what step did I take forward today? That's positive. That's powerful. That is what your algorithm is going to feed you more of the more you say. Instead of, I'm broken, because the hell you are, but it's going to feed you that if you keep saying that. You say, I'm adapting. I'm changing every single day. Power grows where you give it attention. We've heard this stuff before, right? This isn't new to us, but we didn't think that it also worked in the healing game. It absolutely does. Every single time you shift that internal regulation, that internal algorithm, you give your brain new evidence for strength and it begins to build. I love this. Guys, I love this stuff. I don't know why, but I do. I know, I know it's crazy, but I love speaking about these things because the more you understand it, the more you understand how things work, the more you have what? Control. And that's powerful. That's choice. Now, separate what happened from who you are because those two things are not the same. This one is the most important shift in healing because trauma doesn't just hurt you, it tries to rewrite your own identity. You start thinking, I'm damaged. You start thinking, I'm difficult, I'm too much, I'm not normal. And that's what you start projecting. But trauma is something that happened to you. It is not who you are. You were harmed. You were not defined. Your story includes trauma, absolutely. But your identity does not have to revolve around that. Do you see the difference there? This is where empowerment meets responsibility. And I'm going to say that until it clicks. You have to have responsibility in your thoughts and your actions, not responsibility for what happened. Make sure you understand that. The responsibility I'm talking about is for what you build next. You are not responsible for the harm that was done to you. I know you've heard people tell you this was not your fault. It's fucking true. It's true. It was not your fault, but you are responsible for the life you create moving forward. And that's not pressure, my friends. I'm not trying to tell you, you either take responsibility or you hit the road. Hell no, this is a process. This takes a long time, and it's possible. That's what this is, possibility. Because the moment you separate what happened to you from who you are, you create space for a new identity or your old one, however that works. And that's where power begins to grow again. Yes? This one's good. Stop waiting for permission to move forward. Stop it. I've got a good story about this, but let's kind of keep moving forward because this one can be hard to hear, but it's very important. I learned this very hard lesson a while back because we wait for an apology. We wait for someone to understand our trauma. We wait for justice sometimes, and we wait for acknowledgement. All that is us waiting for closure. And listen, those things matter. Those things matter a lot. Accountability matters. Justice most certainly matters. And acknowledgement does matter. But if your ability, listen here, if your ability to move forward depends entirely on someone else doing the right thing first, then your power is still in someone else's hands. Reclaiming power means deciding that your life cannot remain on pause while someone else catches up to their responsibility. You deserve better. You are going to still move forward. Not because the past didn't matter, because it did. But what matters more is what? The future. What we do moving forward. And sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is refusing to let someone else's actions dictate the pace of your healing, the pace of your growth, the pace of your happiness. Remember that. Take that in. This is a little bit real about me, a little insight. There was a time in my life where I thought I had reclaimed my power. I did it. It is mine. But I hadn't. This is where I learned my lesson. Sure, I wasn't exploding anymore. I wasn't reacting very quickly, you know, or at least the way I used to react. I thought that meant growth. And of course, I had grown a lot. And I should celebrate that growth. But I thought I had completely reclaimed it. Internally, I was still outsourcing my power. I was still waiting for people to validate me. Still waiting for someone to understand my past. Still waiting for someone to validate my past. Still waiting for someone to understand my past. Still waiting for acknowledgement for what I had been through. And I told myself, I'll feel at peace when they finally get it. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Because that's when it finally hit me. Those words. If peace depends on someone else's awareness, I'm still not in control. This was hard for me. This was difficult for me to understand because it meant my healing wasn't blocked by them anymore. It was most patiently waiting on me, not someone else. And that doesn't mean that what happened didn't matter. It matters. And it sure as hell didn't mean that I didn't deserve acknowledgement, because you all do. But what it meant, even more importantly, was that I couldn't keep delaying my growth waiting for it. The moment I stopped waiting for closure, the moment I stopped rehearsing the same internal arguments over and over again, the moment I stopped needing someone else to fix what they broke, that's when I felt my power really begin to return. It wasn't loud. Sure as hell it wasn't dramatic. It was actually quiet. It was actually chill. It was stable. But more importantly, and the most important thing, it was intentional. That was the difference. I said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Power isn't loud. It's steady. Here's the hard truth, guys. Again, you will never hear me say this is easy, because it isn't. But at some point, healing requires participation. Not perfection, participation. Please understand the difference between those two words. Power doesn't come back because you wish for it. It comes back because you practice it, just like any other thing in your world, in your life. Every time you choose regulation over reaction, boundaries over people pleasing, progress over blame, you're slowly rebuilding. Practice over and over again makes you better over and over again. You're not broken, my people. You are becoming. At some point, healing shifts from what happened to me to what am I building now? That's when it starts getting exciting. That's when it starts getting motivational. You start recognizing those little pieces that you've put together day in and day out with struggle, with pain, but you still did it. What are you building now? Because if you stay only in analysis, you stay in that reaction. Okay? Reclaiming that power requires participation. I'm not saying that lightly. I understand how hard this is. And the level of difficulty, I also understand, is different for everybody. But I understand that it's hard. What I refuse to believe is that what someone did to you gets to dictate your entire life trajectory. I believe more in you. I've seen it from others. I've seen it from my family members. I've seen it from myself. I've seen it from people on the streets, people I've worked with. You deserve so much more than survival. I don't want the rest of your life to just be, I'm a survivor, because you're so much more than that. But until you start believing it, until you start participating in those actions, that will not happen. And no one can do that for you except for you. With a good support system, with a good cheering section, which you've gained here. Moving forward. So this week's challenge, I want you to do something kind of uncomfortable. Identify one place where you've been giving your power away. Okay? Maybe it's replaying a story that keeps you small. This is all mental. I'm not talking about a physical or even talking out loud. Maybe it's tolerating behavior you know isn't aligned with you. Maybe it's as simple as apologizing for existing. We've all done it. The challenge, however, is choosing one small action that may reclaim your agency. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be loud. What's the word it has to be? Intentional. Because when it feels uncomfortable, remember, growth feels unfamiliar before it feels empowering. Just like anything different that you do. The first time you start doing something you've never done before, you haven't done in however many years, it's uncomfortable as hell. But doing it over and over and over again, it starts becoming empowering. It starts reclaiming your power. You are not trying to become someone else. You are beautiful who you are. You're just reclaiming yourself. And that's your challenge for this week. All right, here's our fashion tie-in. Power and fashion have always been intertwined, okay? From the suffragettes wearing white, to movements reclaiming dress codes, to survivor-led brands challenging narratives around what were you wearing. Clothing can be oppression, or it can be reclamation. The reclamation of your power, damn it. When you choose what you wear intentionally, not to appease, not to hide, and not to perform, but because it reflects who you are becoming, that's power. Subtle, but it's power. And subtle power is more often than not the strongest kind. So I hope you take me up on that challenge. Share with me your thoughts if you feel inclined to do so. I'm really looking forward to what some of you have to say about that. Before we wrap up today, let's take a minute to bring all this back together. Today we talked about power, not the kind our culture likes to sell us, dominance, control, ego. I'm talking about real power, the kind that trauma often takes away from us. Our sense of agency, our voice, our ability to trust ourselves. We talked about how trauma disrupts control and how survival responses like freezing, people-pleasing, or hesitation are not weaknesses. They are your nervous system doing its job. And we also talked about the cultural lie that people have to be loud, aggressive, or perfect. We talked about the truth. Power is simply choice. Choice over how you respond. Choice over your boundaries. Choice over the direction of your healing. Choice over what you wear. We also touched a little bit on the algorithm of the mind. How whatever thoughts we rehearse, whatever stories we replay, our brain feeds us more of. If we want our power back, we have to start consciously shifting what we rehearse. Not pretending the past didn't happen, but refusing to let it be the only story we repeat. And finally, I challenged you to identify one place this week where you've been giving your power away, and then to take one intentional step to reclaim it. Just one. It's not going to be dramatic. Just one choice says, I have agency here. Because power is not going to come back in one big moment. It returns in quiet decisions. And that brings me back to something I often say in this show. You will never be fully healed. We will never be fully healed. Not because we're broken, not because healing isn't a destination, it's direction. Where you're going. Happiness doesn't come from being fixed, my people. It comes from progress, from purpose, from showing up every single day and participating in it, participating in your growth. Your past explains you, but it does not imprison you. Around here, we believe something simple. A little phrase that I thought of based off of a lot of the things we've been talking about. The whole point of this, progress is the point. Repeat that to yourself once in a while. The point isn't perfection. Just look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, progress is the point. Take care of yourself, guys. Keep moving forward. And I'll see you on the path. Hey, y'all. Thanks for walking with me today. If something in this episode resonated with you, you can find resources, support organizations, and additional information at walkwithmepod.com. Whether you're seeking help for yourself or someone you care about, those resources are there for you. You can also connect with me on social media. All of the links are in the show notes and on the website. I always welcome your reflections, questions, and stories. And with your permission, some may even help guide future episodes as this community continues to grow. If you believe in what we're building here, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It truly helps this message reach more people who may need it. And if someone came in mind while you were listening today, consider sharing this episode with them. Sometimes a single conversation can open the door to healing. Until next time, keep moving forward, one step at a time. Psst, this part is super important, my friends. I want to be very clear about something. I am not a licensed therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, or a medical professional. The content shared on Walk With Me is based on personal experience, research, education, and lived perspective, not professional or clinical advice. This podcast is intended for educational, reflective, and community-based conversation only. It is not a substitute for professional mental health care, medical treatment, legal advice, or crisis intervention. If you are in immediate danger, experiencing a crisis, or need professional support, please contact emergency services or a licensed mental health professional or a trusted support organization right away. Resources and hotlines are listed in the show notes and on walkwithmepod.com. Listening to or participating in this podcast does not establish my therapeutic, professional, or client relationship between you and I. My goal here is to open conversations, challenge harmful patterns, and offer insight and hope. But your safety, healing, and care deserve qualified, professional support when needed. Please take care of yourself